Kim Kardashian hates this because she is rich, like the people who employed those nannies. Rich people are now, there are no jobs Americans won't do.
There are a lot more Americans than there are illegal immigrants, so that is also true.
It's such an insult to the American worker to say to them, these are jobs that Americans don't want to do, when millions of Americans are doing those jobs.
Like they're more. Barack Obama deported 5.3 million people.
Yeah, I mean, I totally take your point.
But it's because Donald J. Trump. If it was Barack Obama, it's okay.
But no, not just that. I mean, I think to Karen's point.
Not find anyone to take the jobs. The white.
For those
no.
wages.
The working class
For those
white.
wages.
The working class white people wouldn't do the jobs
For those wages.
No.
I don't. I mean,
so
well, let me just say, I don't know that.
Labor.
They could pay much less. Yes, I agree with you.
I mean, you're suggesting, I mean, just to be clear, all foreign invaders, they are trying to get a rise out of people. However, the tax...
Hello, everybody. Guys, let's get right into this segment. I keep hearing these two arguments that I just think needs to be digged into further. Let's get right into it, and we'll talk about it.
Tonight, as the Trump administration escalates its immigration crackdown, calls are growing to end workplace raids across the country. In Omaha, Nebraska, employees at a meatpacking plant tried to block ICE agents by throwing themselves on top of their car. Now, more than 70 people were still detained in that raid, but here is one supervisor who said what she told them as the chaos unfolded.
We just heard Homeland Security just banging on the door. And I just went inside production and told everybody, hey, immigration is here, start running. So they just started hiding everywhere. And then they found everyone.
Now, even Kim Kardashian is weighing in. She said on social media that she denounces these raids. She wrote, quote, when we witness innocent, hardworking people ripped from their families in inhumane ways, we have to speak up. The Kim Kardashian of it all might matter to some people, but I think it's really more about what she represents. I mean, first of all, she's not sort of reflexively anti-Trump. She's worked with him before on criminal justice reform. But the stories are starting to break through. I mean, here's one of them. This is to CNN Today, talking about nannies being arrested. Two nannies who Milara knows are in ICE detention after they were handcuffed in a public park where they had taken children to play. She said, quote, there is no sensitivity, no emotions, no concern about repercussions. Going into a park with other kids is just another level. The nannies are running, nannies trying to escape, dragging the kids because they have no option, Milara said.
I just want to point out something that we didn't get to in the last block, which is part of why this is happening is because, and the majority of Americans have said, we can all agree that illegal immigration is a problem. We can agree we should be going after violent criminals. But the way he's doing it, the inhumanity. I mean, if you're going after a nanny at a park, when you pick up that nanny, what happens to that child? And we're seeing families being separated. We're seeing instances where the parents are being taken into custody by ICE and the child is being put into the system instead of saying, let's contact that child's caregiver to make sure that child can be in a safe place. It's the inhumanity and the demonizing. And the other point, hold on, the other point, well, because you get loud and I can't get as loud as you can.
I sat back when you said, hold on, I don't sat back and said, all right.
But I think that, the other, so that's the piece of this that we have to acknowledge. Part of the reason that someone like Kim Kardashian is weighing in, or part of the reason you see, even fairly conservative communities saying, wait a second, this is what we thought was going to happen, is because they look at these folks who have been there 10 and 15 years and they're saying, well, isn't there a more humane way to do this? Is it right to actually take people into custody when they have a green card? How about the Afghan soldier who was just arrested who believed
that's another case. This was an Afghan soldier who was in a parole process. And I think, Abel, I want you to respond to this because you mentioned a lot of Latinos who are in the country who are in a process and they're waiting for their turn. Well, in some of these cases, what we're also seeing now is that they're going to their hearing as part of their process. They're being instructed, the immigration judges are being instructed to allow the lawyers for the government to just simply dismiss the case so they can be arrested outside the doors. So we know that that's happening to people who are in the process. Some of these people may have been in this country for decades. They did not come in this last wave in the Biden administration. That's part of what we're seeing too. And I wonder how you see that, where I think a lot of this is happening in your state.
First of all, Abby, I feel like this is just overblown and overgrown, and people get excited and because it's Donald J. Trump.
What's overblown?
I mean, no, what I'm saying is people just get excited and they get so much anger because it's Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump in his first term deported 1.5 million people. So far, he has deported 160,000 people since he became president again. Barack Obama deported 5.3 million people.
Yeah, I mean, I totally take your point.
But it's because it's Donald J. Trump. If it was Barack Obama, it's okay.
But no, not just that. I mean, I think to Karen's point, she's making a point about
these people, when they don't have an argument, it's always the same crap. It's Trump derangement syndrome, or like one of my commenters said, Latino Vince McMahon over here said, it's only because it's Trump. Like, do they really pay this guy? CNN really pay this guy to give this argument? This Obama thing is just so hilarious. For one, Obama did get a lot of slack for that. But the reason it's not nearly as bad is for one just simple example. He didn't go into schools at all and had officers or ICE pretend to have parents' permission to talk to the kids in order to get information about those parents in order to deport them. I don't know. Maybe it's things like that. Maybe it's because you said you'd go after the criminals and people are seeing that you're picking up everyday people looking for work at Home Depot or during childcare services. I don't know. Maybe it seems like this seems like a lot of unneeded cruelty and effort and money for something that's only going to hurt this country. $96 billion in taxes paid, $26 billion Social Security in 2024, in which they receive none of those Social Security benefits. Do we really not have other issues to focus on in this country? I don't know, like education that is lacking, especially in the top 5 worst performing states, which are all red Republican states. I don't know. That sounds like something that could be beneficial. Idiots.
Tactics here. And I think I agree with you in one sense. The Trump administration finds outrage extremely useful. That's one of the reasons why, for example, DHS posted this on X today. It's a poster that says, "Help your country and yourself, report all foreign invaders." They are trying to get a rise out of people. However, the tactics are different. The numbers are different. 23% of all arrests are non-criminals. That is way more than it normally is.
And Abel, I think it's just flat out wrong here in that comparison. I see a lot of people make that comparison. You didn't have Barack Obama's DHS secretary playing action hero on the streets with a DHS, and then tweeting about it. We weren't sending people to El Salvador, right? And you weren't evading legitimate court orders. We're opening Guantanamo Bay next week to house illegal immigrants. I mean,
5 million people.
But yeah, I hear you. Yes. And he was the deporter. He got the name deporter in chief for a reason. Yep. But you brought up. No, I'm saying that it's different. And I'm also saying this. I'm saying what you're highlighting is that on the watch of Democrats under Barack Obama, and now Republicans, you have a broken immigration system.
Completely.
But the fact is, you can't sit here and just say that Mike Johnson and whoever the leader of the leader of the Senate is now and Donald Trump, this doesn't rest at their feet. I mean, the majority of the individuals who are here illegally overstayed a visa.
Not a majority anymore, but at one time it was.
At one time, it was individuals who overstayed their visa, right? We have to fix the border. We have to create. You just deported, or he self-deported, the largest TikTok star in the world who didn't hurt anybody, right? I mean, he was at the Met Gala just recently. And so our immigration system is broken. But what you don't hear from Republicans in the House, the Senate, or the President of the United States is legitimate legislation to pass and fix this problem. In fact, it's crickets.
And he's got both houses of Congress. So if there was an aspiration to do something like that, he very well could. Again, in a lot of cases, I think the Trump administration is interested in the spectacle. When Kristi Noem goes and she makes an ad about illegal immigration and she's saying, hey, you get $1,000 if you leave the country, but you better go because we're coming for you. She's making those ads in English. those are for Trump voters. They are not actually directed at the illegal immigrant population. There is an element of theater here. And are some people more hysterical because it's Donald Trump? Undoubtedly, that is a part of the story. But he's also fine with that. I don't think he's upset about it.
I want to give Batya a chance to get in here because you haven't spoken yet.
Trying to be a good girl.
Well, I do, and I appreciate that. I mean, I do wonder, you know, again, just like with the protests, it's a question of tactics. Not even really, I don't think people are even disagreeing with the broad objective, particularly on the criminal side, but the tactics of just sweeping everybody up. And we know that those tactics are there because of reporting, particularly in the Wall Street Journal, that Stephen Miller went to ICE and said, you're not moving fast enough, just go to the Home Depots and sweep them all up. So that causes outrage, but it also, it instigates communities in a way that we are now seeing the results of now.
So again, according to a CNN poll, 54% of Americans, and according to a CBS poll, 57% of Americans want every illegal migrant deported. It's not a majority want the criminals, a majority want every single one. That is the mandate that Donald Trump believes he was given. Immigration was the top reason people voted for him. Kim Kardashian hates this because she is rich, like the people who employed those nannies. Rich people are now the base of the Democratic Party. They are the employers of low-wage labor. They love illegal migration because they get to pay their nanny less than they would have to pay an American. So, of course, they are very upset that their jobs program of an open border is coming to an end. Working-class people see this as a lifeline because they are still represented as the majority in every industry. I just want to make that point. There is not a single industry in the United States that is not done a majority by American citizens. There is no job that is beneath the dignity of Americans. There are no jobs Americans won't do.
There are a lot more Americans than there are.
So, really quickly, of course, it's just that there's not enough. There's companies that can't find enough Americans to do certain jobs. That's the issue. Is that they need more workers and they can't find them. Undocumented immigrants fill that void. But I gotta say this. Geez, the female Scott Jennings, like, she really must find these talking points online posts or something, or a meme. And they're all just laughing at her there. Even the guy that's on her side, Latino Vince McMahon, out of kindness or not getting back on the panel, they don't call her a dumbass. I'm not on the panel. Hey, dumbass. Like, why the F would someone who is worth $1.7 billion care about paying a few extra $100 a month for daycare or whatever it is? Like, this just doesn't make any sense. It's just like the tariffs thing. When you increase price on goods, it affects you more the less money you have, the poorer you are. Because obviously you don't have enough to cover the increase in prices as easily. When you are rich, like Kim Kardashian, who is worth $1.7 billion, an increase in price in something does very little to her because she has so much money. Get it? So again, Kim Kardashian, I can promise you, isn't worried about paying an extra couple hundred for daycare or a couple thousand, even if it was even if it was 20 extra thousand a month. This is pennies to her. But someone with much less wealth, this would be a concern for them, and perhaps choose not to take on the daycare services and instead stay home with the kids and not get a job, which will shrink the economy as less people are working. You see the problem there? And we'll get into that more later. And by the way, there's over 7 million open jobs in this country, that there's just not enough people. There's no one to fill the jobs. Companies need these people, and there's just not enough people for those jobs that are looking for those jobs. This is just money we're leaving on the table as a country. It's not that hard to understand.
are
That is
than
such
there
an
are
insult.
illegal
That is
immigrants. So
such
that
an
is
in-
also
that is such
true.
an
Math,
insult to
though.
the American
But no, it's an
worker
insult.
to say to them, these are jobs that Americans don't want to do.
Look, it's
When
an
millions of
insult to think
Americans
people
are
watching
doing
can't count.
those jobs.
Like there are more Americans in the country, so yes, there are going to be more Americans doing everyday jobs. I mean, it's an overwhelming number of Americans versus immigrants.
There's also tens of millions of Americans who've left the labor force and aren't
Correct.
working in the Trump administration.
And
spends
there's
all
under-
that.
under-
And their
All right,
wages have
Karen,
been undercut
a quick
by
last word,
illegal
and then we have
migrants.
to go.
Well,
Go
and
ahead.
I will just take us back to last year when we were talking about a town in Ohio where the president spread a false rumor about Haitian migrants eating cats and dogs, which was a total lie. And do you know why those migrants were there? Because the factories that were there could not find anyone to take the jobs. The white,
For those
no,
wages.
the working class
those
white,
wages.
the working class white people wouldn't do the jobs.
For those wages.
No.
I don't.
wouldn't
I mean,
do- so
well, let me
they-
just
and
say,
they were
I don't.
looking
I
for
don't know
migrant
that.
labor.
They could pay much less. Yes, I agree with you.
I mean, you're suggesting. I mean, just to be clear, you're suggesting, and I think not incorrectly, that if they simply raise the wages, more Americans would do the jobs. That is probably true, just in a macroeconomic way. But no. But let me just be clear about one other aspect of this. There is a skill gap that exists in a lot of these industries that wage increases are not going to resolve. So you have to factor that in too. And I think in the case of
the
that
wages
Ohio
was not the
town,
issue.
the wages was not the issue.
Are you for a
Those
living?
jobs had benefits, those
are you
jobs-
for?
and you're being disingenuous because on the one hand, you're right. You can agree that we want to get people who are violent criminals, immigrants out. However, the second part of both the polls you cited, people don't like the way he's doing it. And politically, what's interesting, he thinks he's winning right now, and we're about to have tanks rolling through Washington, D.C. What is that going to do to our psyche when we see that and we see that on our streets?
I think that it's very important in politics to remember that, first of all, polls are a moment in time. Public opinion shifts and it changes, and we should all be aware that Donald Trump and his aides believe that they have these mandates, but that could always change. And I think that's one of the things that we have to figure out where this is going to land as all of this plays out. You're seeing scenes from the streets of Los Angeles right now. We're watching what is happening on the ground everywhere. We'll take you back there to the ground where they.
So guys, the female Scott Jennings there, she made the same argument before about it lowers the wages of Americans. And again, it just doesn't. Don't believe me. Look up study after study shows that that's just not the case. And I'm going to explain to you why. The reason why you can't just get rid of, like in the factory, she said, of the undocumented immigrants and just put Americans in there and pay them more, right? She said, yeah, because the factory doesn't want to pay more, doesn't want to pay more. You can't just do this. Guys, I'm someone that's on the left, but you can't just increase prices like that, because if, especially for something like a factory, the reason for that is because certain products or industries just wouldn't survive with that increase in labor costs. As you increase salaries, let's say in this factory that makes pencils, the pencil price now needs to be increased, right? We talked about this with tariffs. As that pencil price has now been increased because of the labor costs, the demand for pencils will be lower, as consumers will find that it's not worth it anymore. They will find other alternatives like a pen or a computer, whatever. That product and that company will die damn near overnight. All those jobs will be lost. Do you get the, to step 2, step 3? You can't just increase salaries like that. That's why certain industries pay more, because the product being sold has a higher profit margin. There's more meat on the bone, right? To pay people higher. That's just simple as it is. And certain industries just wouldn't survive with an increase in labor costs like that. No one will buy the product anymore. The product will die. The companies that produce that product are gone, and all those workers. You get it? But I'm going to leave it there, guys. And I thought it was worth, just diving into some of those points more, because no one pointed those things out. But let me know what you think about everything in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe. Really helps the channel, really helps get the message out there. And I'll catch you in the next one.